And I say time my place, give me the time my place. No, I'm pulling up. Put that on my mama and grandma, you know I ain't giving up. Rule OG till I die, I ain't never switching up. If you know my insecurities, then you bring them up. I cut you off, ain't got no time for silly talk. Motherfucker ask me if I keep that blicky with me. No, I keep that bitch, tell me talk. Plus, you can try running up your family, gon' be dressing up like don't say me you was the one.
Being a player is the matter, shut. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Me we drinking, smoking, man, I give a boat. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Show me things a man can get enough. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Feel lost thing too, I'm out of love. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true.
Double cup, I'm sipping on, I'm drowning in your ocean. I'm loving you, no caution. I ain't talking just erection. I'm stacking up, I'm finding love so sexy how you say it. Telling me you crave me, so it us to the grave. Yeah, it's only you are ready for the reason I don't need you. It's really nice to meet her. She's panty cause your back's like she's wanting me with racks. Cause I'm not far with a pack, just a older feeling love. I'm stacking up, I've got a bitch, big booty, who's woody, my duty. She's dripping, no sweaty. I'm funny, she's falling, she's calling, I'm coming. Wet on a sunny day, dry on a rainy day. Next day I'm finding love.
Being a place is the matter, shut. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Me we drinking, smoking, man, I give a boat. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Show me things a man can get enough. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Feel lost thing too, I'm out of love. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. She say that she no good for me. I tell her when she moving easy. She make me see my cup with a lot of whiskey. I tell her how they think she can't beat me. But I tell her what's so risky when I'm drinking, sipping whiskey. I feel the love now I missed it. I shoot my shot, not a shot, now I missed it. Whoa. Being a place is the matter, shot. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Me we drinking, smoking, man, I give a boat. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Show me things a man can get enough. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true. Feel lost thing too, I'm out of love. Motherwaka, man, it's fine, true.
Rainy on the mix.
Hello. Welcome back to Critical African Thinkers. As you know, this is a place where we examine everything under the microscope of logic to ascertain what is most factual and logically consistent. So, today we're going to be having a show on the topic that conservatives have lost the right to complain about censorship. Now, we're going to be covering a whole lot of topics. A couple of things have happened the past few weeks, and I want to touch on a lot of them. Now, for those of you who were the earliest members of this channel, you would know that when I started out, I was much more very conservative, very much on the right. Covered people like Glenn Lowry, and who was my hero, or is still my hero in some sense, right? But like I said in an earlier video, my perception about things have changed because I've gotten new information, right? But I still hold very dearly to conservative principles of the individuality, the respect for free speech, respect for religion, and I think religion is a positive thing for humanity, and basically taking your life into your own hands, personal responsibility. Those are things, those are values that would forever remain with me. And I think they are great values, right? But I've come to notice something about conservatives, right? And right wingers, which is that they are very inconsistent with their values. From what's been happening the past few weeks, just shows that their values are very convenient values, right? So they say certain things, you think that these are their principles. For example, free speech, right? They are very big on free speech, right? They're very anti-censorship, right? But they're actually not. They actually want, they don't want to, conservatives don't want to end cancel culture. They want to own it. They want to be the ones to be able to do it. And if these past few weeks have revealed anything, is that they have become everything that they ever criticized the left for or the Democrats for. Let's take one for example, right? Um, Israel, the Israeli issue is to conservatives what the Ukrainian issue was to Democrats or the left wingers, right? When the Ukrainian issue came up and Biden was going to be sending money to Ukraine and all that, there was all this uproar from conservatives that, oh no, America first, you're sending our money to Ukraine. Ukraine is not our business. America should look inwards, shouldn't be funding wars. It's the exact. But now, on the issue of Israel, these same people are saying, oh, we must defend Israel. Oh, we must send money to Israel. Oh, Israel is our greatest ally. Oh, we must do this. Oh, there shouldn't be a ceasefire. These same people that were telling Ukraine to negotiate with Russia, to essentially asking Ukraine to let go of some of its territory just to make peace, right? You just negotiate with Russia. These are the same people that are saying, oh, there should be no ceasefire, even though thousands of people, including children, are dying right now in Palestine or in Gaza. No. So you can see clearly that they're not consistent with their values. These values are very, very convenient values, which when it suits them, they can use it. When it doesn't suit them, they will just push it aside. So let's talk about identity politics too, right? This is another thing that the right always rallies against. Oh, everyone is playing identity politics. Oh, the left plays identity politics too much. We're saying, oh, you know, the individual is supreme. Let's look at, okay, let's say you say here we go again. Yes, here we go again. And I'll tell you why here we go again, right? It might seem that I'm attacking conservatives or right wingers. It might seem that I'm being harsh on them. But the reason I'm doing this is more so that I am disappointed at them because I thought they were the reasonable ones, right? And I thought they were the ones who had principles, who had values. But from what I'm saying, those values are very convenient. Those are values that they do not stick to, right? They do not stick to those values. It's very, very convenient and contextual for them. So, going back to identity politics, right? Which is another thing that the right always rallies. Oh, the left is playing identity politics. But they play it too. And I'll give an example, right? So there's this lady, Whitley Yates, who is a conservative, a black conservative woman. And essentially, a few days ago, she was celebrating the quote and unquote diversity in, what do you call it? Diversity in elections. So she said, if you're looking at Indiana municipal politics, you should recognize that diversity won in all parties yesterday. A historic day in Indiana. 5 black mayors, 4 first, Evansville, Michigan City, Lawrence, Gary Marion, 2 first black councilwomen, Terre Haute and Fishers, right? So she is essentially, right? She's essentially celebrating quote and unquote diversity. Now, this was the same thing that Biden said about um, the black female judge, forgotten her name, and everyone wanted to have his head, right? Oh, why you you just you're appointing this woman for diversity points because oh she's a black woman. Yet Republicans are using this exact same language now. Oh, diversity. We are the party of diversity. That's what they're saying right now. Why does it matter? Why did it matter to this woman that those people were black? Why did it matter to her? Or why did it even matter to her that these were the first black Republicans? This is exactly the same thing that Biden did. And they almost had his head for it. But the right has principles, laughable principles, principles that they don't stick to. Going back again to going more to, more, diversity point. The funny thing with what's happening with the Israeli situation right now, it just reveals something, right? It reveals that the right, they are ready to cancel anybody, they are ready to censor anybody who doesn't take their position. They're ready to do that. They're ready to employ all the tactics of the left that they rallied against. I've seen right wingers on Twitter literally calling for people to be fired. I've seen them. There is this guy, Jake Shields, on Twitter, who is an ex MMA fighter, who is obviously, on not on the side of Israel, and he's been demonetized on Twitter, right, for quote unquote anti-Semitic whatever, right. This same guy has been talking trash about black people. He's been talking trash about for for a very long time. Nobody, I mean, nobody ever called for him to be demonetized. Nobody ever called for him to be, nobody ever called for his head, especially those on the right. They either, they either co-signed what he was saying or they just ignored it. Even Gadsad, is a Jew, and he made a comment that he said that he has been seeing a lot of the trashy things that Jake Shields has been saying, but now that he never occurred to him to block Jake Shields before, but now he's going to block him. And I just laughed. I said, so now because the ignorant thing this guy is saying is hitting too close to home, now you're going to block him because he's saying things that you think are anti-Semitic or you think are anti-Jewish, right, or anti-Israel. Now you are going to block him. By your own admission, this guy has been saying trash, mostly about black people. But you were perfectly fine with it then. No, you were perfectly fine with him doing those ignorant shit. Now ask yourself, how principled are you to not stand against bigotry, but you only stand against it when it applies to you? How principled are you really that you only stand against bigotry when it applies to you? And I noticed the same thing. Though I have quite a number of Jewish friends on Twitter right now, and I never knew these guys were Jewish until this whole fiasco with Israel and Hamas, right? And every time there were things critical, oh, black people are playing the victim, oh, BLM this, BLM that, they were always championing it. They were always, oh, there's nothing like, no, these people are just playing the victim, the victimology and all that. Racism is overblown. And now almost everybody is an anti-Semite. If you say anything critical about Israel, you're an anti-Semite. Now, anti-Semitism is real, but obviously anti-black racism is not real. Like, and I'm like, okay, so much for your principles, right? Now, hate speech is real. Now, we have to look for laws against hate speech. That's, you know, I am pretty consistent with these things, right? And I'll tell you, I've always said it. I think that hate speech shouldn't exist as a category. I think it's as a legal category. It's obviously nonsense and bonkers for you to say, oh, hate speech. Sorry, not say hate crimes. Even hate speech, right? I think hate speech is free speech. People can say whatever the hell they want. I don't care, right? Hate crimes. Crime is crime. Saying hate crime. Right. If someone kills someone out of quote unquote hate and someone kills someone out of any other thing, does it make it any worse that the crime was committed out of hate? I think crime is crime. So I'm the one being consistent here, right? I'm the one saying, you know what you call hate speech or hate crime is bonkers. But these same people who did not believe in hate speech, who did not believe in, hate crimes, just yesterday, they now believe that this thing exists. And I will give you these same people who thought, I don't know how many people who thought BLM was a very fantastic thing. Now, this is from Michelle Rosenberg. I was trying to find out who she was, but maybe you guys know. She said this. She said, Jews went to prison for participating in freedom rides. Jews helped establish the NAACP. Jews marched with BLM. We will remember the silence from the black community. We won't forget. So there are a couple of things here. First of all, are we now endorsing BLM? As in, is this like an endorsement of BLM that, oh, BLM was correct and Jews were marching with them all this while? But now black people are not marching with, they're not marching with Jews. Is this an endorsement of BLM? Number two, why is it the responsibility? Why is it the responsibility of black? You're making a this is essentially identity politics. You're saying black people as a group should be supporting us. I thought it was supposed to be about the individual because from what I see, there are black individuals who support Israel and there are black individuals who support the Palestinians. So how the hell does she come about this? Oh, we are, we are taking notes that the black community is not behind the Jewish people at this point in time. He's not behind Israel at this point in time. You ask yourself, isn't that identity politics? Isn't that what has been rallied against by conservatives for a very long time? Do identities now suddenly matter? Do group identities now matter? Right? So when black people were saying, oh, we're systematically targeted, I have no comment on that, right? The pushback was that, oh no, you're just playing identity politics, you're just using your skin color, right, to but obviously there is a group now almost doing the same thing, and it's now suddenly okay by conservatives, which is interesting. And Wilfred Riley, he supported that. He said she had a point, and I'm like, what point does she have? What point are black people a monolith that, oh, black people have to support Israel at this point in time? If black people are not supporting Israel at this point in time, then they are sort of betraying the Jews who had always supported them in their struggle, including the BLM struggle. This is crazy. So we have seen that even the Republicans, they tokenize black people, right? Whitley Yates, with all she did, oh, we are the party of diversity now. The same thing they rallied against the Democrats. Oh, you're tokenizing black people. You're just putting them there because they're black. Now it's the same thing. So I've talked about cancel culture. Now let's talk about censorship, right? Rashida Tlaib was recently censored, not censor like censor, maybe censor in the sense of in the house and the political sense, right? Of spreading false information about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and this had huge bipartisan support. Both Republicans and Democrats supported this. To me, this is a free speech issue. I mean, shouldn't she be allowed to say what she wants to say? Should These are the same people. This was championed by Republicans, by the way. So these are the same people that don't think that they believe in free speech so much, right? They had a boner over Elon Musk buying Twitter and saying he was going to make it he was a free speech absolutionist, right? Now, these are the same people that think that what she was saying was misinformation, false information. Now, who exactly gets to determine what is misinformation? Who exactly gets to determine what is false information? This was the same critique when the Democrats came with their, misinformation stuff. These were the exact same critique that the right put out, that who is going to be determining what is misinformation, what is fake news, and all that. Now these are the same terminologies that the rights they're using. So in essence, they have become that which they fought for like the past 5 years at least. And then in France, there was a ban that was placed on pro-Palestinian protests. A ban was placed on pro-Palestinian, not riots. I mean, Not riots, mind you. This is protests. And you want to guess what the right, you want to guess what the reaction of some on the right was? Oh, about time. If in fact Dave Rubin said that perhaps there is hope for the West after this banning of, essentially banning the right of people to associate and to protest civilly. I think that in the Western society that people have a right to protest. So if you're going to ban that, aren't you aren't you taking away the rights of people? And the so-called people who are very big on, government should stay the hell away from people. Minimal government, these are the people that want to use the powers of government to, push their own agenda. These are the people that want to do that. Now, let's go over to Ben Shapiro, the baby theocratic fascist, right? So Ben Shapiro tweeted out something which I found. It said, the last time Palestinians determined their own future, they elected Hamas. The right to determine your own future is completely conditional on not supporting genocidal terrorist group. That's the entire problem. And I laughed. So, first of all, let's take it from the beginning. He said the last time the Palestinians determined their own future, they elected Hamas. Hamas came into power in what, 2006? This conflict has been since 1948. So, I mean, if Hamas is the problem, Hamas is a relatively recent problem, right? So, what happened all those years when there was no Hamas? What happened all those years when there was no Hamas? You see how the narratives are being pushed, oh, it's so the right of a people. See, if a people want a terrorist group to be their leader, to be their elected government, that's their business. I mean, Afghanistan right now is being ruled by the Taliban, who for all intents and purposes are known as terrorists, right? That's their business. If a people want, the people have a right to determine what kind of government they want. And their right of self-determination is not hinged on that choice. Something about this conflict, if this conflict between Israel and the Palestinians was about religion, I would be 100% on the side of Israel. If it was about culture, I would be 100% on the side of Israel. If it's about terrorism, I would be 100% on the side of Israel. But it's primarily none of these things. It is not. It is essentially about a people who have been dispossessed of their land, a people who have been forced to live as refugees. That is what this conflict is about. The terrorism and those things are secondary. Just as Israel has a right to defend itself, everybody keeps saying that, the Palestinians have the right to also resist occupation. They have a right to do. In fact, it is recognized in international law that people have a right to resist occupation. But it is being framed like the activities of the Palestinians is driven purely by anti-Semitism, and you ask yourself, are you okay? Are you stupid? These are two people who are at war. Are you going to tell me that if Ukraine attacks Russia, it is driven by anti-Russian, by hatred of Russia, irrational hatred of Russia? No, there is a history there. There is a history. These people are at war. People who are at war hate each other. They fight one another. So it is not unreasonable It is not unreasonable that the Palestinians will hate the Israelis. And it is not also unreasonable that the Israelis will hate the Palestinians because they are at war. They're fighting over property, they're fighting over a piece of land. So when you say, oh, it's because of anti-Semitism, that's why the Palestinians are fighting. And I'm like, are you seriously stupid? Like you don't know the history of the conflict? Really? That's what you're saying? So what this has revealed to me is that a whole lot of people are not critical. A whole lot of people don't even care about facts, especially those who claim to be the facts guys. Facts don't care about your feelings, guys. Imagine someone like Ben Shapiro saying that a people's right to self-determination is hinged on the kind of leaders that that they elect. So imagine if the US elects a leader that it's a stupid, maniacal, demented kind of person. You're telling me that the rights of people in the US to self-determine is hinged on the kind of leader that they elect. These are the kind of inanities that come from the likes of the people in the Daily Wire and their stupidity. Well, this conflict has revealed a whole lot of things. Now, I'm not going to deny the fact that yeah, Jewish people have been attacked. Not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that Jewish people would feel unsafe at this point in time. Not going to deny that. But to say that the only reason why, or the main reason why these things are happening in Israel, or why anyone will be critical against Israel, is just anti Semitism, that is purely to shut down a conversation. That is purely that's canceling. Most people don't want to be called racist, and people even dread more to be called anti-Semites. People really, really do dread to be called anti-Semites. So when you invoke a word like that, what you're doing is shutting down conversation. You're shutting down conversation, which is not healthy, right? I think that people should be much more critical. People should I- don't try to common sense things. Don't try to you these things are there. Just try and find out information. Why are these things there? Now, part of the call of the Palestinians, right? There's this part of the phrase for which Rashida Tlaib was censored for was the chant, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Now, some people take that to mean that, oh, the Jews will be pushed into the sea. I have no doubt that there are some people who actually think that way. But from what I've come to understand, the sentiment behind that is not that the Jews should be pushed into the sea, is that the Palestinians should be allowed back into their homes, preferably to be granted equal rights as citizens of Israel. In fact, part of the reason why Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005 was to prevent something like that. The previous video I made about Gaza, the real reasons Israel pulled out of Gaza, explained it that much, right? It explained it that much that the Israelis were worried that the Palestinians are no longer fighting for a two states. They are no longer fighting for, they have changed the struggle from the Algerian type of struggle of trying to kick the French out of Algeria. They have changed it to the South African style of, okay, we want to be treated as equal citizens of this country. And obviously, they don't want that because they want a Jewish ethno state, which I don't know, man. But you can't on one hand want an ethno nationalist state and then complain that the other side also wants an ethno nationalist state, and and try to discredit the other side that they want an ethno nationalist state. I mean, the Palestinians, the Hamas, and many of them, some of them want an Arab state, an Islamic state. That's what they want. What's the difference between having an Islamic state and having a Jewish state? Both are religious states. I don't like religious states. I prefer secular states where people of all religions can practice their religion. Be you Christian, be you Jewish, be you Muslim, whatever. Everybody has their own rights. Under the law, people can practice their faith. But when you start saying, oh, this is a state exclusively for Muslims, this is a state exclusive for Christians, this is a state exclusive for Jews, I might have a problem with that. Anyway, I think I've done a lot of the monologue. So let me put the link, and those who can call in, let's have a conversation for the next 30 minutes. And that would be for the show. Can see Stanley. Stanley can call in. Can see Harry, Anan, Unpopular. Anyone can call in. What do you think about these things that I've just said? In my mind, conservatives have lost the right to complain about censorship because they are in effect doing it now. They don't want the end of censorship. They want to control censorship. They want to be the ones to censor. And no, this is not me being harsh on them. This is me being disappointed mostly at them. And I thought they knew. I thought they knew better. Now, part of the critique that they keep giving to the left is that the people, the protesters, right? Many of them queers for Palestine and all that. They're saying, oh, these people would if you live in an Islam, if you lived in Palestine, you would be killed for your lifestyle and all that. And I'm like, you know what? These squares for Palestine, they are much more honorable than you because they have stuck with their principle. Their principle is that we're going to defend the rights of people who we think are marginalized. And they feel the Palestinians are being marginalized. And they're saying, we don't care if these people don't like us. Our principle is we are fighting for everyone who is marginalized. Who is more honorable in that sense? So if you're only going to fight for people who you think are aligned with you politically, aligned with you ideologically, if you're only going to hold certain principles for those people who you agree with, then essentially, do you really have principles? Or you're just playing favoritisms? Stanley, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. um, well, I've pretty much known, like, ever since I was, well, I don't know, let's just say 20 or 30 years, that conservatives are pretty hypocritical. However, pretty much everyone in the American political space has been hypocritical forever. You know, again, I go back to my favorite founder for some reason or another is Thomas Jefferson, and he was everything. I mean, he was highly hypocritical. So, I think that's just the way American politics are. One day, they say politics makes a strange bedfellows. Well, um, sometimes people pair up over issues and they are the oddest matches. But it's not surprising, that someone like a Ben Shapiro, would bend the truth or you know stretch the rhetoric. Um, just not that surprising. In this whole cancel thing, what is that link I sent you today to the show with Douglas? What's his name?
Douglas Murray.
Yeah, he literally said that in his opinion, anyone who basically rips down those posters that they've been putting around London with the carnage from the Israel Hamas war, anyone who rips down those posters ought to just leave.
Yeah.
So where's the free speech in that? Now, and these are the people he was like leading the charge about cancel culture and all this stuff. What is that but cancel culture?
It's so crazy that they don't see the contradictions, or they don't see the cognitive dissonance, right? You are forced free speech only when it affects you,
But
affects
the
the
thing
group that you
is,
care about.
they think they are right. They think there's only one correct position. That's why they're so willing to cancel people. They think if you don't hold this pro-Israel position, you are anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism is wrong. So you need to shut up.
That's exactly the argument from the left.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. And what do they call the left? They call like the progressives. They call the totalitarian left,
Yeah.
which is ironic, is it not?
Levi, welcome to the show. How you doing? Are you there, Levi?
We can't hear
Speak,
you.
speak up. I can't hear you. Anyway, until
I,
Levi
I
gets.
want to when you get off to the Palestinian thing,
Mm,
I want to bring up a parallel that I heard on a podcast or something,
yeah.
and it was so spot on.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's have it.
Well, thinking of the settler colonialism, the right parallel is how the Indians, Native Americans in America were displaced. Their
Mm,
land was taken.
mhm.
Trail of Tears, they were forced from North Georgia and in southern South Carolina, North Carolina. They were forced by Andrew Jackson all the way out to Oklahoma. It's exactly the same thing.
Mm.
And Lord knows we had, Indian wars. When William Tecumseh Sherman, when the Civil War ended, his main job was killing Indians out west. It's a perfect parallel. Settler
And
colonial.
I want to guess that those Indians would be demonized as savages, as brutes,
Yes,
as to justify
absolutely.
the killing.
In the parallel is what if someone out in Oklahoma decided they were just gonna break out and take over Oklahoma?
Well, there was the Nate Turner incident. I don't know if we can talk about that, right? Um, I'm sure you're familiar with that Nate Turner incident.
I didn't hear it. Which
Nate
one?
Nate Turner, Nate Turner.
Oh, Nat Turner. Yeah, but that was way back in like 1823.
Yeah, but now if you look at what Nat Turner did, and you're going to see, oh, this man is an absolute monster, without understanding the context of why he did what he did, right? You can see similar parallels.
Oh yeah.
Things don't happen in a vacuum. Things don't happen for no reason, and this is not justifying anything, but to ignore all that context and just go straight to these people are doing these things because they are pure evil is insane.
Well, I think both sides have huge problems.
Yeah.
But an odd thing is that many, like Egypt, they do not want Palestinians to immigrate into India en masse.
Yeah, but why would they? Why it's just like saying that US should just open its border to Mexico because they're all Americans, they're all Northern Americans.
Well,
This
that's true.
I keep hearing this, oh, Israel saying that, oh, why won't the Arab world just let the Palestinians in? And I'm like, really? Why wouldn't why
Well,
were they refugees in the first place? You've got to ask yourself, why were they refugees in the first place?
they're
Why
doing
do they
identity politics.
why
They
do
think
they
all
have to?
Arabs are alike.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Why should they have to leave their land? Why should anybody have to take them in? Why is it the responsibility of Egypt? I think it's the responsibility of the people occupying their homes to get the hell out of their homes so they can return, not for some other people to take them in.
Right.
It's crazy. So, Levi, welcome back. How you doing?
What's up?
for I'm good.
Your
Well,
volume's a
love
bit
you guys.
low.
It's low.
Yeah. It might. Let's see. I don't think it's me. I heard Charles.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was low. It was low. It was low. So, I was watching Yusuf Bazem and Piers Morgan having a conversation, and he made this point too. Was like, "Oh, you're saying why don't the Egyptians take in the Palestinians? So why don't America just take the Israelis? Why don't you just give them Florida?" He asked that
Well, we
question
kind
back
of
to,
do.
"Why don't you just give them Florida?"
Well, a lot of Americans hold dual citizenship.
Yeah, they do. Anan, welcome. Let's hear you. Are you there, Anan? Oh wow. Yeah. So, Stanley, what's
Yeah.
other? So the point about, hey Freezon, how you doing? The point about Whitley Yates, basically making a diversity party. What do you think about that? She was basically saying, "Oh, the Republicans are the party of diversity now. We have five black elected officials. We have the first black a Republican, this and that and that." What do you
Well,
think?
some of the cities she mentioned in Indiana, like Gary, Indiana, it's got a huge black population. I'm more shocked that they've never had a black. Maybe she meant black female. Gary, I mean, the Jackson Five, for instance, are from Gary, Indiana. I'm surprised the whole government isn't, mostly black.
Hmm,
So that book that I gave you, the loneliness of the black Republican, I put it
hmm,
in your DM.
yeah.
It pretty much covers that topic. Pretty much since 1930, blacks have been moving away from the Republicans. So I mean, I mean, if you want to be technical about it, Republicans have always been diverse. It's just how they treat the people or who they pay attention to. They don't, they have a history of pretty much ignoring black Republicans. And I would even say today, the only black Republicans that they will stop and listen to is Thomas Sowell, Clarence Thomas, and Glenn Lowry.
Hmm, yeah. So
I mean,
my
you didn't watch the debate, the Republican debate last
I
night? Did
I watched I watched clips of it, and it was just basically a who can bomb other people for Israel more than they were just having a contest on who can start
Well,
more wars
Tim Scott,
than
the black senator, man, I mean, you
yeah.
should have heard some of the comments. Basically, they treated him like he was a non-entity.
Wow.
I mean, basically, they said, Why is Tim Scott even in this race?" Somebody actually said that. So that's the party of diversity.
Wow. Levi, welcome back.
Uh, apologize. This is Nigeria, so the network is not very good where I'm at. So I know clearly.
Yeah, you're breaking up real bad. Hi, Melinda. Melinda, how you doing? Been a while.
Melinda
Yeah,
should call him.
yeah, Melinda, why don't you call in? Yeah. So my point about, my point about the Whitley Yates tweet was, it's ironic that she was using the exact words that um, the left would use. She was basically calling attention to the, oh, we have the first black this, or we have this black, we have this much black elected officials, and I'm like, uh, why did it matter? Why did it matter that they were black? Did it? Why did you have
Well,
to? Why
I'll
did you
be.
have
It
to
doesn't really matter to
say
you
that?
in general.
Go
I
ahead,
have to.
Levi.
I think she just she's she's an isolated incident. Let me use that term because conservatives in general don't really care much about diversity or how you look like, how much melanin you have in your skin or the lack thereof. We care more about um how your ideas, we care more and things of that nature. So I mean,
You
if you
talk.
look at those people who are, yeah, go ahead.
Are you in the U.S.?
But not necessarily. No, I'm not.
Okay, because when I say America is a racist country, we've got to be the most race conscious country. Maybe Britain is a bit more, but America is incredibly race conscious.
That doesn't mean
Race
that they're
permeates
racist.
everything.
Racist.
As a matter of fact, if you're like racially ambiguous, and I guarantee you, racially ambiguous is a term that was invented in America. People will ask you, well, what's your background? Where are you from? You've never seen like TV shows, like a comedy, somebody, it'll be a joke. Where are you from?
But it doesn't really matter. I mean, like you said, it could be a
Well,
joke or it could be
it
something that
shouldn't
people
matter.
just talk about. What I've never really looked at from aspect, but I think America is a place from the outside looking in obviously not American or not lived
Melinda,
in
please,
the
please
country
call in.
before. But
Oh yeah, come on
from
in.
the outside
If you
looking
want to
in,
go off on the Democratic Party, come on. I'm looking for some spice.
anyways, as I was saying, I've never really considered the US to be a country that is so how do I put it now? I think it's recently that country is becoming so very much focused on race to the extent that it's causing a lot of division. Um, not just politically, it's even gotten to where people can talk to each other.
Levi, you're
Yeah,
cutting real
like
bad. I can't make out what you're saying at all. You're, you're cutting real bad.
crazy. Go out and come back. Crazy.
Well, Levi, look at Israel. Um, it's not so much color of skin that matters, but Arab Jewish matters.
Yeah.
And
I
I
think
know that. I mean, I spent like a week there years
but
ago.
but but even at that, I think skin there's also a racial hierarchy in Israel as well, right?
I didn't.
I
I may not have been there long enough.
Yeah.
I like had a little crush on a woman, young lady.
Mm,
She was Sephardic, and her
yeah.
skin was as dark as mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And I
mean,
mean,
I
she
have
was treated fine. As a matter of fact, I went all over Haifa. Now, part of it was that I was American, I'm sure,
mm,
but
yeah.
they had no problems. I had no problems, but
Yeah, of course
again,
you
I was
won't
only
have
there
any
a week.
problem. So I'm talking about the within Israeli society itself, right? So
Oh yeah,
if you understand Israeli society, you will see that the white looking
yeah,
Ashkenazi Jews are the top, right? I mean, all their prime ministers have been Ashkenazi. Top
yeah. I
members
got
of government are usually Ashkenazi.
I got
Then you have the Sephardic Jews, which are mostly the Jews from Spain, Portugal, and then you have the Mizrahi Jews, which are Jews from other Middle Eastern countries like Iraq and Syria and the rest.
I got
And
you.
then you have the Ethiopian Jews who just say their conditions is similar to what you find with black people in America. Then you have the
Well,
Arabs. So
I think they're worse.
yep. So it's it's crazy. It's crazy. Levi, welcome back. Hope your network doesn't cut again this time.
Let me just test it right now. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Is it breaking?
I can hear you, but still breaking a bit. But go ahead.
Anyways, I was saying this. I think Charles was making a point. This breaking.
Oh wow, that's crazy. So we have about 10 minutes more for this stream. I don't want it to be more than an hour long. Stanley, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, I don't know. The Democrats had a good. That's why I wanted Melinda to call, and she's mad at Democrats, and I wanted to gloat. We had a good election night.
So I think being mad at, I just think it's still right now to be mad at Democrats. Yeah, there's still some of their craziness going on, right? Oh, Melinda's called in. That's good. Hi, Melinda. How you doing? Good to have you. Excited to have you.
Hey,
Yeah,
Melinda.
welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh,
You speaking. Can't hear you now.
okay.
Yeah, I just heard you now. Okay. I heard okay.
So go off
All
on the
right.
Democrats.
I'll just say that everyone should go someone called Vince Everett Ellison. He can explain
Um,
it more than
sorry,
me.
Melinda, are you using Chrome? Are you using Chrome as a browser?
Yes.
Okay, so you need to use an earpiece because I think there's a problem with Chrome and you keep getting this sort of an echo. But I think if you use an earpiece, it would be
Oh
better.
yeah, I am using an earpiece right now.
Oh, you're using it right now. Okay, good.
Well,
All
back
right.
off the microphone a little bit. See if that helps.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, better now.
Okay. But yeah, I just discovered Vince Edward Everett, sorry, Ellison, and he pretty much was on Tucker Carlson. And I know people don't really like Tucker or agree with him,
He has
but
a
this is a
show.
black, well, I guess on X or Twitter or whatever. And this is a black man, and he's explaining the history, the real history of Democratic Party, which I kind of knew because my grandmother did not follow the Democratic Party. She was born in 1924 in a small town in Texas. And I always wondered why she didn't follow Martin Luther King and any of that Democratic Party rhetoric And
Okay.
now I know why.
Well,
Well, she
no.
told me, but now I really know why.
The Democrats in Texas were Dixiecrats, and they were racist as anything. They're the ones who, in
Yeah, and they
roundabout,
still are.
I disagree with that. I mean, they're racists in both parties. It's just Democrats are a little bit more
Well, I think
crafty.
they're racist in another way that's more covert now, and I've
Oh yeah, they're
figured that
crafty.
out for myself.
They're crafty.
They basically want to do what excuse me, LBJ said,
Yep.
keep people dumb and voting for them forever.
Yep.
So,
Well, LBJ, I actually read about him today. How LBJ kind of became famous for his civil rights thing is right after World War II. There was a Hispanic guy, I can't remember his name, who died in the Pacific during World War II, and
mm,
there was a funeral home in Texas that wouldn't like bury him because he was Hispanic. So LBJ stepped in. He just gotten elected senator. He wound up taking charge, and this soldier wound up being buried in Arlington. So, LBJ was always, even LBJ, I don't know whether it's because he was a teacher or just why, but, as gruff as he could be, he wound up being kind of an unlikely civil rights person because in his part of the world, he was in that Strom Thurmond, Dixiecrat sort of atmosphere in the South. The whole South was like that. Herman Talmadge, etc. So
yeah,
yeah, I
but
can understand
black
your
people
grand.
didn't need civil rights. That's kind of the point. My grandma
Right.
didn't need it, and
The
a lot
thing,
of people didn't need it.
right, but the thing is after 1964, that all changed because all the Dixiecrats became Republicans following what's Barry Goldwater. Remember, get Barry
No,
Gold?
they were all Republicans before 1964.
Back when
They mostly changed over because of
you
Martin
mean the
Luther
black?
King infiltrating the black church.
You mean the well, Martin Luther King didn't infiltrate anything.
Well, his ideals, sorry.
Uh, no, his father literally ran a church, and he took over his father's church. So he didn't. He grew up in the church. He didn't infiltrate.
Well, actually, he did. That's what I'm saying. Maybe people should look up
Well, no,
Mr. Vince
I know,
Ellison because he
I
talked
know
about
the
Martin Luther
history.
King, and it might be surprising, and a lot of people agree with him.
Okay, I don't have a doubt. I know the history. It's my hobby,
Oh,
and I'm from Georgia.
okay. So Martin Luther basically sold black people to basically
You're
in the
saying
poverty,
you're saying Martin Luther King stole black people?
sold the black people into poverty.
How
The
so?
different part by basically creating the man out of the house rule after the Moynihan report was published.
Okay, I'm not following you.
Yeah, I think she'll be back. But
I'm not following how Martin Luther King had anything to do with the Moynihan report.
Hello,
Melinda, welcome back.
sorry, I got knocked off. But yeah,
I'm not
hello.
sure I follow how Martin Luther King had much to do with the Moynihan report.
It's deep. That's what I'm saying. Like this man can explain it better than I can within
Okay, well,
this short amount of
um,
time.
I'll find the show. I don't generally, if I can find the show, I don't have a Twitter account. But if he's giving Tucker Carlson history lessons, more than likely he's wrong.
Well, he's giving everybody history lessons. He was just on his show to promote his book.
And what are his credentials? Is he a historian?
Living.
Well, I'm living.
Hey
You say the
Charles, I
same
don't know if
thing
you heard.
about Jesse Lee Peterson.
Is he old? Is he a history professor or
He's
something?
older. He's not a professor.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
I
don't
feel
All
believe
much.
right.
everything professors say.
I feel much more comfortable hearing it from a historian
Well,
All right.
historians
So
lie. So,
because that's what they do.
let's
yep.
um let's
They've
get
been
to
lying for
Levi.
8 years. So, I mean, okay. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah. So Levi, if you can go ahead now. We'll
Uh,
go back to
hey
Melissa.
Charles, I don't know if I'm still breaking up. I'm trying to get to.
No,
Am
you're
I still
clearer
breaking up?
now. No, no, you're not
Okay,
breaking up now.
I'm close. I'm very close to the nearest mast in my area, so I'm hoping this is going
Okay.
to work out.
I think it's working fine so far.
Anyways, first I wanted to say that I
Huh?
fundamentally disagree with a lot of what you were saying, as usual.
Okay. Oh, so sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the
So
thing is, I don't know. I wanted to address the point that Stanley was making earlier.
go ahead.
I think in general, because you were since we're talking about the right or conservatives in general, I don't think they've lost the right to complain about censorship because I don't think you accurately represented their position on the issue.
Okay.
You know,
So
I believe that talking about censorship that has been going on, for a couple of years now, especially on the social media platforms and other places as well. The perspective of the conservatives has always been fair rules or the rules that are being made should apply for everybody. All right. So if some certain rules are applied for conservatives, they should not be selected. It should not be selective, right? Censorship. If you want to censor conservatives because of a particular kind of content that they are posting out there for people to see, for people to consume, because you are afraid it's going to be a subject or the object of misinformation, then that rule should also apply to other people as well, the liberals and whoever else is using these platforms. That has been the position of conservatives since let's say 2020 or before, even before that. That has been the consensus generally. So I don't know where you're getting this position that
okay,
I
so
never liked censorship.
if
I'm a
I get you
conservative,
correctly,
and personally, I think I would censor some things. It's very important because
No,
in a
it's not.
society that you want to maintain some certain level of decency, some certain level of discipline, and not so much exposure to some certain kind of content, for example, pornography or explicit kind of stuff. So in a society like that, you would need censorship, and I don't think conser- conservatives have ever been against censorship. They are for censorship, just that they are for the right kind of censorship, right?
so
So the complaint
what
has not
determines
been that, oh, we are against censorship,
okay,
against
correct.
rules
Good.
not being
So
applied fairly across the board for everybody. That's just been the position.
So
So I don't know if you have anything to say
what's
about
the
it.
right
You can
kind of
respond.
censorship? What's the right kind of censorship, and who gets to decide what's okay to be censored? Did you hear my question, Levi?
Journey? I've been rambling on and on. You never finish.
Levi, can you hear me?
You censored him, Charles.
No, I. This is the freest speech platform. So, Levi, my question
Yeah.
is, who gets to determine what's the right kind of censorship,
Oh
and what's
God,
the right kind of censorship in your opinion?
I believe.
Oh, wow, he can't hear me.
I
Anyway,
believe.
let's get back to you, Melinda.
Uh,
Okay.
Well, um, I agree that MLK supported the welfare state, but what specifically is wrong with that?
Everything.
Okay, everything is too broad. If people need help, what's wrong
Um,
with doing it?
they didn't need help. That's the point. Like they didn't need this. Black people were striving, and the whole
I think
thing with Jim Crow laws were changing.
okay. I'm.
So
What do you say
it
to? What do you
was
say?
communist. Black
What do you say
people
to
say
white? Should white people get help if they
that.
need it?
Yeah,
Should
but
should white people get help if they need it?
yes,
Okay, should black people get help if they need it?
yes,
Okay, that's those are my questions. If they need it, they need it.
yeah, but it wasn't created to help. It was created to destroy. If
And
it
I
was created to help and
thoroughly
it was for everybody, I don't have a problem with that.
does
But it
welfare
was created to
destroy
destroy and to make
does
black
welfare
people a permanent underclass. That's what it
does
was created.
welfare more white people get welfare than black
Yeah,
people?
because there's more white
So
people.
my question is, does it destroy white people?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, then you and I will disagree because I think if people need help, they need help and they should get it if it can be provided.
So I
But it's
have a
not
question.
helping.
I
It's
I have a
like
question for
anybody who
Melinda.
gets on welfare and who knows anybody who gets on welfare knows that it takes practically a miracle to get off. Doesn't matter
Well,
what race you are because
you
it's
know,
designed to keep you on it for the rest of your life for generations. It's not like, oh, this is a hand up so you can go to school or start a business or anything like that. I've
you know,
lived around poor white people, poor Mexican people, and black people, because I'm black, who are on welfare. And there are some who kind of give up because it's really hard. And then there's some who want to, but they have to fight every day to get off of it because it's
I
designed
know
to keep you on it.
my experience has been totally different than yours. I know plenty of
Okay.
people, especially young mothers. I know plenty of young mothers. As a matter of fact, I have a sister of a girl I went to high. Well, she went to my sister high school. She was a single mother, and now she was on welfare for a little bit. Now she's like a high school principal. So I know plenty of
Okay,
people.
that's one person.
Okay,
And was it
well,
hard
you
for
know
her?
what? If we're going to talk one person in numbers, give me numbers. If we
So
want to go down that road,
thousands.
no, you'd have to prove it.
I have a question for Melinda.
I grew up in Madera, California.
Okay,
That was
you did not grow up everywhere black people live. That's basically what you're saying.
hold on, hold on, hold on. I said I grew up in Madera, California. I lived all over California, in and in Los Angeles. I live in Los Angeles now. But my point was Madera, California in the 90s was the capital of teen pregnancy in California. So I saw firsthand how welfare and the different programs were affecting Black people, because Black people do live in that portion of California, Mexican American,
Okay.
second generation from immigrants, and poor white people.
I
This is
think
near Fresno, California, in the Central Valley, if anybody knows of that.
I think
And it's practically destroyed by welfare now. If you
I
look it up,
I
Google Fresno, California, and you'll see what it's like.
I think that the percentage of black people living in California is 5%. I think it's a small sample of what of the country as a whole. So you had a bad experience. I
No.
Well, hold on, let me
Look
finish.
at Oakland, California.
What
It's
about it?
probably
What
90%
about it?
Black people.
Okay,
And you can
state
guess how many of them are on welfare right
the
now.
state
And look,
has
it's going into the ground.
okay
And it's very near
mostly,
Madera.
a mostly black California city still has a minuscule population compared to say in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Atlanta, Georgia is Sodom and Gomorrah right now. So, I mean, you have another example?
I live 40 miles outside of Atlanta. I can promise you it's not Sodom and Gomorrah.
I have a step aunt that lives there and has lived there since the
Well,
90s. So
like I said, I live
she's
40
trying to
miles.
move because it's hell.
It is not hell. It's a great city.
Okay. But you don't live in there, you live outside of it.
Uh,
Live in the city and see
okay.
how you.
Well,
Well, hold on,
does your
Stanley.
aunt live in
Yes,
in
she does. She lives
south?
in the city.
Does she live southeast Atlanta, like south part of Fulton County,
I
or does
think
she,
she lives like
or does
right
she
in the
live in,
city. I'm
or
not
does she
sure.
live, or does she live in Druid Hills or Buckhead?
No, she doesn't live in Buckhead.
Okay, okay. So, so we're
Buckhead.
not going to
If
do
she
the
lives
where do you live,
Buckhead
where do you live?
Hill, then
Stanley,
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, Charles, go
Stanley.
ahead, man. You got to take
Yeah,
back control of the stream.
yeah. So I have a question for Melinda. Then Wolf will go. So Melinda,
Okay.
you mentioned earlier that welfare was designed to make Black people a permanent underclass.
Yeah.
And then a few seconds later, you said that more white people are on welfare, and it also destroys white people as well. So if it's more like an equal opportunity thing where anybody who gets on welfare gets destroyed, then how do you reconcile that fact with the claim that
Well, it
it was
started,
designed to
excuse me,
make
it started to make Black people. But of course, you can't say it was just only for Black people. So it was a whole government thing. But it was started for Black people because I guess the voice leaders were saying, okay, Black people need help, which maybe there were Black people who needed help, but it was a small percentage because at that point, Black people were making strides to where they didn't need help for the most part. Yes, there were people who needed help, but it was such a small percentage of people.
okay, well, you're getting that history
Mm.
wrong. Um,
okay. So Stanley,
No,
designed for
I'm
black
Stanley,
not.
people. It was designed for
Stanley,
black inner city black people and
Stanley.
white people living in Appalachia.
So Wolf, go now.
Yeah.
Let's hear Wolf, then we'll hear Levi.
Um. So I hear like Stanley's argument. I hear Melinda. Melinda, the only thing I would say, I agree in part with what you're saying. But what you got to understand is if we look at the census, black men earn between 40 to 45,000. White men start out at 52,000 and up. That's a $7,000 difference in terms of yearly earnings. Therefore, more black people, by your standard in the 60s, would have needed it. But what has happened is progression over time. More white folks are on it now. And the problem with this argument that I hear, which to Stanley's credit, there is more white folks that take welfare than blacks. The subculture you're talking
Because
about, it's only
there's
like 10 to
a
13% of
great
black folks that take
percentage of
welfare.
white people.
No, 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 Melinda, only
There's a
like
greater
10 to
percentage of white
13%.
people. So
Oh, Melinda, there's a subculture in Black America that's 10 to 13% that gets welfare. The other like 80% don't take it.
yeah, because there's different classes of Black people.
No, there's a subculture. The same way there's a subculture of white folks that live in trailer parks that are poor that need welfare, and there's more of them than there is black folks in the subculture of Black America. That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't know. But, okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Like, for example, right, like being from Richmond, VA, a lot of people in Richmond take welfare because it's poor. But if you look at cities like Atlanta, where it's the black capital of the Americas, a lot of people in Atlanta don't have welfare. A lot of them are rich, flourishing without it. It comes down to a subculture in the race groups that accept welfare versus the majority. And you're trying to compare the subculture to the majority. That's what Stanley's trying to tell you. You're generalizing a little bit too much, but I'm late to the party, so I missed some of it. So I don't want to, go after anybody like that. So I'm just going off what I heard in the past.
Well, I
15
do
minutes.
apologize if I'm generalizing because
No,
I do admit that there are different classes of black people, and there were different classes of
yeah.
black people back then who didn't need
Mhm.
it. But
Well, Martin Luther King didn't need
unfortunately,
it.
no, he
Well,
didn't
but
need it.
Melinda,
He was well off.
like Melinda, I don't want to, go off on a tangent here, but you got to understand why there might have been more black folks back then that needed it because of the systemic racism that was going on at the time that was holding a lot of black people back in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 20s, 10s, 1800s, all that. All of that played a role in what you see
But
going on
there
today.
weren't more black people that needed it. It was
There
a
weren't
small
more black
percentage
people, but
that,
there was blatant systemic racism on the books.
yes, there was. I'm not disputing that at all.
And that's why there might have been more blacks that needed welfare back then, which is, something that needs to be taken into account.
But that
All
was
of
a
the people
moral
alive today,
decision
like
because
Melinda,
the devout Christians that I know of are in my family and other people that lived in neighborhoods surrounding my grandma and her family didn't take it.
I mean, yeah, 100% it was a choice. But
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, if you're going to feed your kids or they're going to go hungry, they did what they had to do.
Yeah, they did what they had to do, but did they really have to do that?
Some of them, yeah, they didn't have a choice because of the black codes in the South that was holding them back and arresting them for not having a job while discriminating against them getting a job.
I have a
They weren't
question.
discriminated against getting a job. If they wanted a job, they could get a job. If they wanted
No,
to keep the man in the house,
Melinda, in the South, there was a thing called the black codes, which meant that they could basically make it a crime for you to
my
not have a job
grandma
and they put you
lived
in
in the
jail.
South until the 40s. She moved to California in the 40s.
But you're not understanding what I'm saying is that they could make a law saying if you don't have a job,
Why
you
did
go to jail.
Why did your grandmother get out of the South?
For a better opportunity. There was more jobs
Okay,
in California. She lived in a small town in Texas,
then you have made Wolf's point.
which is
It was hard in the South, and there was such things as the Great Migration, where people wanted to get the hell out of the South. Black people.
but she didn't necessarily get out because oh my
Then what?
God, her life was so bad because of racism. It
Melinda,
was like lived in a
Melinda,
small town
though,
near Dallas.
if
She
that's true,
wanted
About
more
that.
opportunities. She became a nurse over here. So
no, Melinda, you gotta ask. Okay,
She
Melinda,
wouldn't
you
have
just,
become a nurse in South Texas.
but Melinda, I'm not trying to gang up on you here, but you just made my point again. You said she left to go to California for opportunities. Therefore, she did not feel like the opportunities in the South were there. That's why she migrated.
just like any other person in a small town in the South probably
No, no,
moved to
no, no, no,
California.
no. You got to understand, Melinda, there was laws on the books that would put a black
And
person
there
in
were laws
jail.
in California too.
No,
Oh, for
Melinda,
goodness sake.
There were sundown towns in California.
Have you ever
So
heard?
it's not like she was really escaping anything.
Have you
She
ever
had
heard?
the grit, like other
Have you,
people,
have
to
you
do what she
ever?
needed to do.
Have you heard of the Great Migration 20s,
Yes,
10? Okay, well, why did they leave the South?
some of them did leave because they felt like it was racist, and some, like
Oh,
my
some
family,
went.
left because they felt okay. There's a lot of more opportunity over here. I'm going to take advantage of it.
Well, you're not getting your ass beat. That was the main reason.
Well, she
No,
wasn't getting her ass
Melinda,
beat over there because she lived in an all-black
Melinda,
neighborhood. That's
Melinda, I
still
don't want to gang up on you again. Melinda, do you know what the black codes of the South were? Do you know what they were?
yeah.
That basically, you know what they meant. Therefore, they could deny black men a job and then lock them up and re-enslave them in the prison system. The prison
Yeah.
systems were built to hold black men
Boy,
captive in slavery
here we
again.
go.
What do you
They know, here
do?
we go about it. Like, Melinda, that's a factual historical statement.
Yeah, just like police were Klansmen.
Well, let me
Melinda, now
put it
you
to
going
you
to the
this way.
police.
Let me be blunt. If you want to learn Black history, Tucker Carlson's show is not the place to
I know
learn.
Black history.
You do not. I'm gonna be
Not
blunt.
according to you, because you know it from communists who wrote the book.
Dude, not only do I know it from communists, I know it from Black authors.
Yeah, and they're communists.
Oh,
Well,
forget
Melinda,
so Black
and
authors
this,
are
And they
communists.
don't like black people.
and
Black
They
Melinda,
think
Black
they're
authors
less
don't
than.
like Black people. Well, all I have to say is I'm gonna go on mute and contemplate this bit of wisdom.
Okay,
well,
well, you do that
Melinda, here's
then.
the thing. Like, I don't agree with Stanley on everything. I'm conservative
Okay.
myself, but what I try to explain is I can't accept the accountability argument to the 60s. Everything before that, there is historical evidence of oppression on black and brown bodies that held them back.
And this is
That is
all
undeniable.
communist talking point.
No, it's not communist
Make,
talking points, it's historical
make
facts.
people believe in this racist boogeyman.
Melinda, it's a fact. Was it not true that they were lynching black people in the South in the
Because
30s,
if
40s, 50s,
they're,
and 60s?
they were lynching white people
No,
too.
no,
Have
they
you ever
lynched
heard
white
of the
people after the
hangman's
slavery
gallows?
called the
That was the
Quakers.
punishment for crimes.
Melinda,
Oh,
out of
And it
respect,
wasn't like they were going around picking every
Melinda,
single
they were
black
hanging
and
Black
lynching them,
people for
because
no
if it was
crimes.
true, then
That's the
you wouldn't be
problem.
here.
They were hanging Black people for no reason.
No, that's not true.
Oh,
Melinda,
whoa, whoa.
Melinda, the Jason Aldean video, the small town, there was a black man that was lynched outside that courthouse in like 1927. A black kid and
Okay, but
kid
do
that
you know
did
the
something
reason
wrong.
why?
Whoa.
Can we step back into the past and figure out, okay, why was this
Yeah,
person lynched?
you can step back into the past by reading a history book.
And Melinda, the only reason I'm not able to agree with you is because you talking pre-1960. I can't agree with you with that because they were still hanging black folks. There was laws on the books, discrimination. Look at the Constitution of Georgia, which denied blacks the right to vote until after World War II. Discriminating against them on the books. The Constitution of Alabama looked at black folks as second-class citizens in the 50s.
And the Democratic Party does now.
No, Melinda. I can't accept that argument either because there was Republicans that voted on them bills too. So can't just blame Democrats.
I'm not for Republicans either, but who are the teachers who don't teach kids how to read? Mainly Democrats.
No, there's poor states too, such as Wisconsin.
Oh, that's
Wisconsin's a shithole
laughable.
state.
That's
Yes,
laughable
it is
when
hilarious. Then
80%
tell
of the
me,
kids in
tell me,
Baltimore can't read,
tell me who
and that's
taught
not on
Trump to
purpose.
read. So Democrat, all teachers are
That's
Democrats.
one person, Trump. Like, if he can't read, that's his own fault. If thousands of kids can't read in the whole city, whose fault is that?
Democrats, right?
Well, I mean, who's the majority of the teachers?
Well, let me put it to you this way. If kids can't read before they get to first grade, are you going to blame that on the teachers too?
Yep, because there's pre-K.
Okay. So the Republican parents not teaching their kids to read, they're okay.
Majority of Republicans probably homeschool their kids. They don't put them in public
Okay.
preschool.
I see this is just going to be a difficult conversation. I think you make a lot of generalizations.
Yeah, like Melinda, I can agree with you past 1960 to an extent, but I'm just gonna have to agree to disagree. I know you said you know Black history, but I'm sorry, like with all due respect, I don't think you do.
I know actual Black history. I reject the Black history that was taught to me in school.
You reject the black. How about the research you did on your own?
Okay, so I have a
I just
question.
lived it. I know people. So
Hold on, y'all.
Okay,
Hold
it's
on, y'all.
like
Out of respect.
I'm go
sorry.
by
No, no, no.
what
Hey,
these
Stanley.
1
communists
minute, guys.
say.
Stanley and Melinda. Out of respect for Charles, we gotta let him speak because he is the
Uh,
host.
Okay,
So,
yes.
Melinda, a question for you. I'm really loving
Hmm.
the points I'm making. So, my question would be, what sources do you now use in getting your Black history? If you've rejected that was taught to you in school, you believe they're wrong, what sources do you consult for your Black history now?
Uh, human life, the people that are still alive who lived back then,
Well, there's,
talking to older people while they're
I
still
mean,
here,
That's
anecdotes
and they
can
usually tell the truth.
anecdotal.
those are anecdotal. So experiences can be different for different people, even within a 1 mile radius, right? So for us to have something much more systematic, it has to be from from um, maybe some scientific paper, maybe some historian that has taken a wider context, that has taken testimonies from a wider sample. Than they can be selection bias, right? They can be local selection bias. So if you're basing your revised knowledge of Black history based on the anecdotes of people
But
around, you
excuse me,
might,
I'm sorry, I don't want to overspeak you. But the
yeah.
history that is written in the books is revisionist history.
Yeah, okay. I agree. I have admitted to that fact. I'm just saying the
No.
alternative that you are providing isn't sufficient enough on its own to say that this is objective history as well.
Okay,
Because it's
here's
So
not
the
written
deal.
by quote unquote scholars and not the people
Okay,
who actually lived it.
here here is the problem with that revisionist
I'm sorry,
history.
can I hear Stanley's act? I mean, sorry, Charles' answer to that?
Yeah, hold on, Stanley. Out of respect for her, let her finish
so
her point.
so you're
No, I just
saying
wanted to hear Charles' answer to that.
because they're not written by scholars or something. Well, I'm not saying it's because they're not written by scholars. I'm saying, what are your sources? Sources usually differ, right? Even in any topic, there are more credible sources to any topic than there are others, right? So you can look at the sources, you can look at the footnotes, you can
Yes.
trace to find out which makes more sense than the other. We can't just simply discount research and say all research are
That's
propaganda.
very
There are some
interesting.
research that are actually solid
But these are
research.
people, they're not case studies that
You already
someone,
okay.
you
Case
know,
studies are written by
made
people.
up.
Well,
Yeah. And it's a small group of people. If I
yeah.
talk to older white people, older black people,
Well, hold on.
and
Levi is
their
trying to get in
stories
too.
match up. So how is that?
Well, I don't know. I'll have to take your word for it.
I mean, I can see where she's going, but I can't accept that argument pre 1960. But what was Levi saying? Go ahead, brother.
All right. Shout you. On to um. Everyone,
Uh, can y'all hear him? Because he's cutting out on my end.
Yeah, I'm still having some trouble. You were good there for a minute, Levi.
Yeah, I can't hear him now. I don't know if he's talking or not.
I need you.
Hey,
Thank
Melinda,
you, Levi. It's Melinda, though, not Melissa, but thank you.
what did I'm sorry. Um,
I need him now.
I recommend there's a book that I just finished called The Loneliness of the Black Republican. You might find it interesting.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Levi, are you still there?
I'm still here. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
It's a little bit better now.
Oh,
He just cut
I
out
tried to say
again.
something. I don't know. Anyway, so I guess I'm going to end it at then. Making my point.
Hold on,
The
Levi.
mic
Can
over
you
here,
jump
right?
out and jump back in and see if it'll let you? Because your mic is still cutting in and out. Can you jump out and jump back in?
All right. Let me do that. Let me do that.
Okay. So
Yeah, it might fix his mic.
Fred is making some pretty solid arguments in favor of Melinda's point, and he said you can't discard oral history either, which I think is valid.
And I
Oral
just
history,
responded to it.
and he also said might as well say your mother's stories about her experiences during Jim Crow don't mean shit. So there is a place for
Amen. Amen.
Okay,
there
Sorry.
is a place
I,
for oral listening as
I,
well. So
I'll have to bring out the closet academic in me. Oral history is perfectly fine. The problem is memory is very fallible.
All
So,
right.
what my grandmother experienced, what my grandfather experienced, my father has like some pretty interesting stories. He grew up in South Georgia. So, I know a lot of my family's oral history, but um, my family's oral history is a little bit different than your family's oral history because they grew up in, deep South Georgia.
Mm.
So is my family's oral history about, how bad the South could be for Black people any more or less valid than your family's oral history, Melinda? Because my
No,
family's oral
but
history doesn't
my
match up.
family is from a different region of the country, so maybe they
Uh,
experience different things.
that is my whole point.
Yeah, like Melinda, I'm sure even during slave days, there was probably a couple states in the South where it was a little bit better than other states. I ain't gonna argue with you about that. But the general census was that the Confederacy basically dictated how the South ran, and it was not for the benefit of Black people at all. That's why
No,
the
I'm not saying
Galveston,
that.
Texas incident.
Never said that.
So yeah, so I got three questions for you. Can I ask you? I just kind of want to see where you stand on this.
Okay.
So, do you think that America was built by blacks or whites?
Both.
Like, do you think that the foundation of America, that what we see today historically, was due to slavery?
No.
Do you think that you don't think that blacks built the foundation of America?
They had a part in it, yes.
Did
I
they
don't
play a
believe they
bigger
did the
role
whole
than the
thing.
whites?
No.
They didn't play a bigger role than the whites?
No.
So, Wolf, I don't think that's something you can actually measure. I think um, everyone
I
had their
think
part
you
to
can.
play.
Right.
Everyone played. Of course, slavery was a part of the founding of America. There are
No.
other things that were part of the founding as well. So,
Um,
uh,
you go and look at the history of Low Country, South Carolina, where plantation owners got rich off of the rice culture. Okay,
yeah, but
there were no white
that's not
people.
the whole
There
of
were
America.
no.
Well,
The
well,
wealth
see,
of
But
those
you know,
plantation
sorry to
owners
interrupt.
was
Did you know that
literally
there were
built.
slaves too?
Let
And there
me
were black
finish,
slave
please.
owners?
Let me finish, please. The wealth of those rice plantation owners was literally built by Black people out in the rice paddies. And if you've ever read a history book on that rice culture, Black slaves were literally expendable.
well, the indigo plantations too. Can't forget
Oh
about
yeah,
them.
absolutely. So
And that's why,
these white people wouldn't be rich to. Thomas Jefferson got to sit in his lovely house and think great thoughts because he didn't have to go out and hoe a row.
So you're assuming that all white people own slaves?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that America got a very good start because Thomas Jefferson and other founding fathers had time to sit and think great thoughts because they weren't out in the fields growing their tobacco.
But
You
did
know,
you know
growing
that
tobacco is pretty
white
tough.
people were the first
Nope,
slaves here?
I didn't say white
And they were
people.
called
I said
indentured
founding
servants.
fathers. They were
So
founding fathers who happened to be
if
white.
you're going off of who built the country, there were
They
white
did
slaves
not
well,
first.
build the country.
Melinda,
They founded the country. There's a
well,
difference.
Melinda, there's a problem there with that statement too, because a lot of indentured servants were paid for their labor. Black people were seen as
Right,
property. They had no rights,
right.
nothing.
And a lot of
If
indentured
That's
servants
correct.
weren't slaves for life.
But
Right.
Stanley and
And they
Wolf,
earned freedom.
right? Um, there is no denying the fact that slavery contributed to whatever America is today.
It didn't
But
contribute. It was
the whole of the
foundation.
U.S. wasn't a
well,
slave
well,
state,
Charles,
right? The North wasn't slave
Okay,
holding,
northern
right?
shipping.
And
Some of the
let me finish.
biggest slave traders in the
Let me finish my
country at the
point, Stanley.
time were
Let me
from
finish my point.
places like Rhode Island.
Let me finish my point, Stanley. Right? I'm sure there were other industry as well. Of course, everything is intertwined. It wasn't just slavery per se. There were other industries that were contributing to the
No,
economy of America and all that. So
no.
it seems a little bit too skewed to just say, "Oh, it was all slavery. It was just slavery."
well,
I
Charles,
don't
let me
think
add a
that's
Okay,
caveat.
can I have the answer to this question?
okay.
In the North, it was shipping that built the North and processing cotton and textile mills. Again, the root of those two industries. And if you go back and you look at Madison's notes on the Constitutional Convention, there were two major factions: Northern shippers and Southern plantation owners. Those were the two major industries in 1787. Both were
I have
based
a
on
question.
slavery, transporting slaves and working slaves.
I have a
Yeah, but
question.
go ahead, Melinda.
Was the tobacco industry not large as well?
Who grew the tobacco?
Native Americans?
Oh,
And they
come
had
on.
black slaves?
Okay.
You're
Uh,
denying that?
plantations in Virginia and North Carolina were tobacco plantations.
But you're denying that Native
They were
Americans
not
were black
tended.
slaves?
They were not tended. Those
Well,
they were not tended by Native Americans in 18.
No, they had black slaves who did it. They
okay,
owned
all right.
them.
All right, hold on. I gotta correct this,
Indians
Melinda, because
introduced the tobacco culture.
I gotta correct that
Right.
statement a little bit,
And they had
Melinda.
Okay,
black
if you
slaves.
know, you go back to like 60. The Indians grew tobacco for white plantation owners before the founding of the United States.
No. White
Yes,
people
Well,
weren't here, so how could they grow it for white people?
1607, 1619, the first slaves were Indians. I admit that. They grew the tobacco and introduced the
I was just
culture,
about to get to
but
that
this
point,
is
Stanley.
before
And
1760.
they eventually owned black slaves
Oh,
themselves.
hold on, Melinda.
Okay,
I gotta
You
correct
denying that?
you
That's
talking
I
not
gotta
about
correct
a
this.
fact?
Melinda, I gotta correct
Yes.
this because
Hi.
I've studied the native history because I'm part Cherokee Native myself. You're not correct in your analysis. When the white colonizers showed up here, they gave Native Americans one of two options. You
yes.
either adopt our ideology or you get sex slave to Morocco, North Africa. A lot of Arabs are mixed in with Native Americans now. They gave the Native American two choices: enslave the black man or we kill you. They would kill them in front of their families, rape their wives, and take their children. So this ideology that natives willingly enslaved blacks is a lie. They did not do it because they wanted to, which is why a lot of them fled to Canada and to Mexico. The ones that did enslave blacks eventually adopted them into their culture, which is why now go to the reservation in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a lot of Cherokee that are mixed in with African Americans who were former slaves who now identify with the tribe. This lie that the natives had slaves, it's true, but it was not the same way the white colonizers did it. The natives had no say in buying the slaves from Africa. They were forced upon themselves to accept this ideology, which is
They
why
had no
Pocahontas was
say
a slave and Sacagawea was a
because
slave.
they didn't accept money.
No,
Melinda, I have a book.
Okay.
I have a book for you. It's called American Slavery, American Freedom. It's by Morgan. It's essentially a history of pre-America. It's basically a history of Virginia, and it talks specifically about how Indians were treated by the first settlers in 1607 in
Yeah,
Georgia.
I'm not
like,
denying that Native Americans were treated badly. I have Native American in
but
my
see,
background,
Melinda,
That they were
what you're trying to
treated
but
do
bad.
I
They were
mean,
is
that they were
Melinda.
treated
truth is the
badly.
truth.
Your point was that tobacco was grown by Indians. That is untrue post 1776, unless they
Well,
owned plantations.
and that's the other part too, Melinda, is like most of the Native Americans, the true blooded ones, have went extinct. They've killed like 90% of the tribes. They
Then
had
how
an
did they get to
international trade language
California?
that's false. They got to California through the what was it called? The Trail of
Well, because
Tears and a
they
couple
were
other migrations. But
So how did
California.
they
Melinda,
thrive in California if they killed 80% of them?
California has Native Americans, right?
they
Right.
do, yes. But here's the thing, Melinda. You have a thing called a $5 Indian head. These are white colonizers who are claiming native blood that have less than like 2%, who are saying they're Native American and they're getting the benefits of the native language and the native culture they claim without actually being part of it.
Okay.
They're called $5 Indian heads. They're fake Native Americans who are claiming the lineage that's not theirs.
Oh, you're saying I do in my background?
You
I'm
probably
confused.
do have native in your language, in your lineage, because a lot of natives and blacks mixed in, because there was a
Right.
thing called buck breaking back in the old days. And before they started making the black man rape the black women, they used to make the black man rape the Native American woman because they were trying to produce the superhuman slave that was best to reproduce and produce crops for the slave master on the plantation.
Okay, so I have two questions from S.A. Levi. Right, the first one is I think he wants Melinda to answer this. So why does every conversation about black people always have to lead to slavery? Um,
Me? I didn't bring up the
Can
conversation.
I
I
mean,
can I answer that question?
yeah, answer.
And I'm
Um,
sorry
when
if
he
you were
when
asking
he gets
me.
when
It
he
wasn't only black people who were slaves, and I know that. So I mean,
when
maybe
he
that
gets
question was not directed towards me. I don't know.
well,
when he
okay, Melinda.
when he gets his phone working, he'll be free to change the subject.
Okay, but Melinda, here's another problem too, right? And here's a historical fact for you. Solomon Northup was a freed black man in the North. He was captured by two white men and resold into slavery, lost his court case against his kidnappers, and got no compensation. He was re-enslaved for 10 years. A white indentured servant, if he was treated by his slave master, could take him to court because he had rights under the Constitution. The blacks did not. Therefore, the white man was not a slave. He had rights under the Constitution. That's the difference.
Okay, so number two question. AC says, when are you white folks gonna stand up against black people in your own country? And this is coming from a black man in Nigeria.
Oh boy.
you,
Um,
are you
I
laughing,
wanna
Melinda?
I wanna
Yeah,
I
wanna
mean,
it just reminds me of Jesse Lee Peterson. That's all.
Oh, but Stanley, real quick, Melinda, you're a very intelligent woman. I don't want you to take like I'm attacking you or nothing. I really appreciate having this dialogue
Thank
with
you.
you.
I understand. I mean,
I
everybody
don't
has
agree with
different
you
points
historically, but I feel where you're coming from 1964. I just
of
until
view.
we get to that point, I can't accept that argument.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so
it's hard to
guys,
accept because it's like everybody was taught the same thing. And I was taught it too. I actually believed it until I sat down with elders who kind of told me the truth. And not just
They
black
told you
elders, not
they
just white elders,
Well,
Mexican
hold on,
American.
Stanley. Let her
they
finish real quick.
told
Hold
you
on.
their truth, not the truth.
okay, so
Their
I think we
Melinda,
should let's go back to the
yeah, and Stanley,
original
or
conversation,
Charles, I kind
right?
of
So
wanted to. Could you give me the context of what you meant by the title? Because I didn't know where you was going with that.
yeah, so let me just a few things, right? This is mostly Twitter talk, right? So anytime you see me put a stream, just know that it's off of conversations that have been happening on Twitter, right? Uh, so I think that many conservatives, many of the big conservative accounts, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, and the likes, they have become woke. They've become the very thing that
Mm,
they used to rally against. Let's talk about censorship. Let's talk about identity politics. Let's talk about the tokenization of Black people, right? So let's start
mm,
with tokenization. Whitley Yates, who by herself is a Black woman, right? But she's a Republican conservative. She made a post today on Twitter where she was basically saying, "Oh, the Republicans are the party of diversity now. In Indiana, we just elected the first Black this, five Black that, this Black that," and I was like, "Oh, this is sounding a lot like liberal talk, and conservatives really don't like that kind of identity politics, but they're doing it now." The other one, talking about censorship, um, Michelle, okay, Rashida Tlaib was censored by the U.S. The House, I think the House, and it was driven mostly by Republicans. And what was she censored for? It was censored for spreading false information about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Remember that about a few years ago, when the Democrats came up with their own sort of fake news, censorship stuff, Republicans kept asking, so who gets to decide what is fake news? Who gets to decide what is false information? But you see Republicans
mm,
doing it now. In terms of cancel culture or limitations of free speech in France, they've placed a ban on pro-Palestinian protests, not riots, protests which are
mm,
supposed to be legal, right? And conservative accounts like Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro are basically rejoicing over that fact, right? So what this is telling me is that conservatives were never against any of these things. They were never against censorship. They were never against cancel culture because even some of them have called for people to be fired from their jobs for quote and unquote anti-Semitism. They were never against all these things. They wanted to control these things. So now that they can apply these tools, they are perfectly, okay with applying them. But these were the things that they were fighting against just a few years ago. So I'm wondering where all this is coming from, why they are so comfortable now with censoring people. If you say anything, if you say anything critical of Israel, you're an anti-Semite. You are, all the name calling. There's really, it's basically just name calling. They don't respond with facts or anything. If you say anything critical about Israel, you're an Hamas supporter. All the same things that the left would have done. I mean, the left will come at you with labels and not engage you with any solid arguments. I mean, I even watched
mm,
I watched a debate. It wasn't anything of a debate. It was a beating. Norman Finkelstein and Eli Lake. No, Finkelstein decimated Eli Lake. Eli was basically, "Why are you being mean to Israel?" And Finkelstein was coming with facts and logic and all those things, and the other guy was basically ad hominems, just insulting. And so I'm seeing this trend on the right now, and I'm like, okay, what the hell is happening over here? So basically, that was what the conversation was about today. Yeah.
mm. I mean, I can understand Ben Shapiro's perspective because he's Jewish, so he's obviously going to be pro-Israel pretty much no matter what. Um, it's a hard
Yeah,
one, right? Because
Norman is Jewish too, but he's not
the
pro-Israel.
problem,
There are
Charles,
a
is
lot of
this: is
people who are
that
not.
a lot of these conservative-minded Republicans are looking at Palestine as Hamas, but there's Palestinians that are not Hamas that don't agree with Hamas, and they're collateral damage, unfortunately, because they're bombing the hell out of Gaza and these other places. And that's the
Well,
problem I
Hamas
see
is
with
the
it.
but and that doesn't even matter because Hamas is the government of Gaza, and it doesn't even matter if everybody in Gaza supports Hamas, right? It's just like saying just because the U.S. government was elected by the people of the US and the US government goes to do shit elsewhere, then you should start attacking Americans, right? I don't think you
Right.
should hold people responsible for what their government does, even if they support their government, right?
Yeah.
I don't think civilians should become targeted in a conflict, in a war, right? And I think this is a war. This is a war between Palestinians and
Yep.
Israel. The Palestinians have their military, which is Hamas. Israel has their military, which is the IDF. So if soldiers are killing each other, that's fine by me. But when you start targeting civilians because these civilians
Yeah.
support the government, then I have a problem.
Well, the
Right.
problem, the
I
this
kind of agree with the censorship. My
this is what I don't understand. And maybe someone here can help me with this. But if you know that Hamas is hiding assets and fighters amongst civilians, I wouldn't be comfortable like doing frontal attacks. Okay, I don't think it's a valid argument that, hey, they're hiding among civilians, therefore, there's a certain amount of civilian casualties that's acceptable. I just don't buy that argument. I think that logic in and of itself is a war crime.
Yep. So there was someone who asked this question on Twitter that what if Hamas was hiding in a city in Israel, right? Would the IDF bomb that city just to get rid of Hamas?
Excellent question.
I mean, that's a what would they
I'm
do?
sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So the question was, the IDF is saying the reason a lot of Palestinian civilians are being killed is because Hamas is hiding within the civilian population. They're hiding their weapons and all that. So bombing those locations will lead to high civilian casualties. So someone asked the question that would the IDF bomb Hamas if Hamas was hiding within a city in Israel, right, where you have Jewish people all around? Would they bomb Hamas? Do you think they do that?
Probably, if they didn't know.
I
I
mean,
think
they know that Hamas is here and they know they're Jewish citizens there. Do you think they do that?
Yeah, but Hamas fights dirty. They'll drop a bomb to a pregnant lady and just send her out
okay,
there, and that's
Hamas
reality.
doesn't drop bombs; they lob rockets.
Well,
So
and Charles, there's another problem with this too. That there's videos of Palestine killing babies and shit, but there's also
which
videos
Right.
of the Jewish
which
army
videos?
blowing up houses.
Which no, Wolf, please, can you share with me the videos of
There was
Palestinians killing babies?
there was a video. Who was the guy? There's a video that shows a Palestinian walking into a
Beheading
room,
babies. Sorry to
and there was
interrupt.
there was 15 or 16 people in the room. Charles, two of the women had babies, and he took his AK-47 and just mowed everybody down, and then shot the baby in the head on top of it, just to set the example. He was speaking in whatever language they do, so I don't know what he was saying. The
Oh, you
video is
have
on
that
Twitter.
Okay, but
video?
how does that?
Can you
How
share? Can you
does
share that video with
how?
If I
me?
can find it, I will send it to you. Yes.
Um,
Please do.
that's pretty much an accepted fact that what Hamas did was just like they all the people who did that should just be killed. Don't even bother with the trial. However, that does not justify an
Yeah.
established nation state's army
Hmm.
pre-planning what are acceptable civilian casualties.
Yeah.
Why aren't
No,
they
hundred
being
percent.
smarter than this? Because in the PR world, in the court of public opinion, they are not going to win. There will be
So I have a
conservatives.
question.
There will be conservatives who will be turned off by a 10,000 to 1, a 10 to 1 civilian casualty rate.
I have a
Israel is being
question.
smart.
Yeah,
Is it
Melinda, go
right?
ahead.
I'm sorry. Is it right? Let's just say hypothetically for a bully to start beating on you and you kick their ass. Sorry, excuse my language.
Okay, well, let me
Is
ask
that
you
right?
a question. Who in this situation is the bully?
Hamas. They
Okay,
Why?
started.
I thought there were so many people, and I might be inclined to agree with them.
They
That
bombed a concert
okay, may I
with
finish?
unsuspecting civilians
Okay,
that were doing nothing to
there are
them.
who is
So
the
Israel does
bully?
not have the right to fight back.
Who is the bully here is highly
Hamas.
debatable. That's
That's not
your.
debatable. If people are just
It is
enjoying
totally
life, not bothering
debatable.
So,
anybody,
so
It
and
is
they
I
get
need to
bombed
totally.
at a
This
concert.
is
sorry,
totally
I need to
debatable.
come
And
in.
I'm not
Israel
for
has
either one, but I'm
Israel
just
is
saying
a
that that's wrong.
nuclear
And I
power.
don't understand how people can't understand
Israel
it.
is a nuclear power with infinite resources.
Well, I'm
So I have a
sorry, but
question.
there is a case
I
here
saw,
where a
I saw
Melinda.
13-year-old
the
girl. Is it
the
okay if I speak? Is it okay if I speak?
the bully
Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
it's a
is
little bit trivial, but there was a case here where a 13-year-old girl was in McDonald's with other children. She decided she wanted to pick on an adult that she didn't know, and she got her ass beat.
so how
Sorry,
is
excuse my language. So, is it wrong for that adult to beat that child's ass because the child swung on her first?
okay?
It's
Who
kind of
is
the same thing.
So
in this
so
situation? Who is the
Stanley,
hypothetical adult?
Stanley,
Israel or Hamas?
Stanley.
So the adult should just let the kid beat on her
I didn't ask. That
because
Wait.
she's
wasn't
an
my
adult.
that wasn't my
So,
question.
Melinda, I have a couple of
Mm-hmm.
questions for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know the history of the conflict between the Palestinians and Israel? Do you know the history?
I don't, and I'm trying to learn more about it. But
Okay,
I'm
so
just saying, I'm not for either one. By the way,
so
I'm
let
just
me give let me give a
saying what's
context.
wrong is wrong.
Let me give a context to this conflict, right?
Hmm.
Now, the Jews had been in the land of Israel, or what you call Palestine. They had inhabited that land for about 1,000 years after Joshua got them into the land, right? And about 2,000 years ago, the Romans destroyed their nation and exiled many of the Jews. Some went to Europe, some went to different parts of the world, but some stayed back. They've always been Jews in the land, right?
Hmm.
And 2,000 years later, there are other people living in the land now. Some are Jews, some are Arabs, some are Christians, some are Samaritans, and all that. Now, the Jews in Europe decided, as Jews who have not been there for 2,000 years, decided that, okay, now we want to create a nation in Palestine and call it Israel.
It
Now,
wasn't
this
just the Jews, though.
Yeah, but let me finish my point. So they said they wanted to create their state with the help of the British and all that. But there were people living there already, and many of them identified as Arabs. So without consultation, they were going to divide the land, one to the Jews, one to the Arabs. As at that time, the Arabs were more than two-thirds of the population in Palestine as at that time. So they were the majority. Other parts of the Middle East were getting their independence. Those other parts like Syria, like Iraq, they could all determine, the principle of self-determination was applied to them, but same was not given to the Palestinians, right? So
Hmm.
basically, the nation of Israel was born in 1948, and many of these Palestinians were kicked out of their homes, their villages. Some were killed, and they became refugees. So many of them were pushed to Gaza and to the West Bank, right? and they've not been allowed to return to their homes for 75 years. Now, this
Mm.
conflict is a conflict of the Palestinians themselves saying it's you're occupying my home, you're occupying my land. We have a right to resist occupiers, right? This conflict has been going on with Israel. It's always been both sides attacking each other. Israel will go into the West Bank or into Gaza and kill people or start building settlements, even in land that the UN has recognized. Okay, this land is supposed to be for Palestinians. Maybe they can form their own states sometime. But Israel goes there, keeps expanding its territory. Then in Gaza specifically, which is one of the most densest places in the world, where you have 2 million people, more than half of them being children, it's been blockaded by Israel for more than 20 years. People in Gaza can't come out, they can't go in without Israeli permission. They don't have an airport, they don't have a seaport, they don't have anything. Israel controls everything that goes in and out of Gaza. So they are basically like prisoners, right? They can't go out without Israeli permission, would really not be given, right? Do you think, given that kind of condition, do you think that the Palestinians should just accept their fate and take it and say, no, this is what we have, this is what we have to deal with? These people
Um,
kicked us out of our land, our homes. We can't go back. We're basically living as refugees. The UN recognizes that the blockade of Gaza is illegal. Do you think that it's okay for the Palestinians to just accept that and do nothing
no,
about it?
I don't think that's okay. But did you say that they could form their own land separate?
I didn't get that.
No, I thought you just said that. I mean,
She
they have opportunity. I thought. Sorry.
she asked if Palestine, yeah, Palestine has had chances if they would, and not Palestinians. I'm gonna use their political entities, the PLO and Hamas. Um, the problem was the denial of Israel's right to exist. And there are problems on both sides of the equation. I'm not pro Israel. I'm not anti Palestine. It's the political slash terrorist organizations that are the problem.
Yeah.
So,
You know,
so,
it,
so,
Yeah, it's
extremism,
been going on
Yeah.
before I was born. It's a complicated thing. I'm
it's
just,
Um.
I'm American, and I honestly think we should stay out. It's none of
Well,
our business.
Charles.
I
We
don't I
shouldn't have senators who are supporting either one. They should
I
be
So
supporting this country. And
I
that's my.
actually agree with you, Melinda.
What's that?
I said I actually agree with you.
well, Charles, I shared
Oh,
the link.
first time ever. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
Charles, the
it
link I shared talked about the video that was shared. It got flagged by Twitter's AI bot, but later was re-put up and confirmed. And in the article, it talks about the Hamas soldier that executed two babies in two women's arms, shot them in the head, and blew their brains against the wall. And he was the one that started the chant saying, "Death to Israel, death to Israel." And he said, "Until all Jews are dead, we won't stop."
Right.
well
There's your
then
that
evidence,
But
Charles.
he's one guy though. Keep that in mind. So it's not like.
that's a sad thing. That's a sad thing. Um,
Charles,
totally
But yes,
Charles,
I
that's
shared
condemnable,
it.
right?
I shared it in the
But
chat where he
yeah.
literally said it. It was fact checked by Democrat,
okay,
side Republican, and
So,
Independent.
but
well,
all
you have to understand.
Palestinian children didn't say that.
And that's where I agree
Another
with that.
thing, you have to understand that both sides are at war, right? This is
Yep,
not a justification, right? Both sides are at war. They have a right to hate each other, and
for
right.
your argument
If
sounded
you,
like you just
if you,
I just
or how much what
if you look enough, you would find videos of Israelis calling for
yeah,
the killing of Palestinians, like
100%.
death to all Palestinians and all that. If you look,
where is the evidence, Charles?
if you look closely enough, you would also find videos of Israeli soldiers killing unarmed Palestinians. In fact, after this October 7th, whatever happened, right? In the West Bank, there was no Hamas in the West Bank. Israeli settlers went into the West Bank and started killing innocent Palestinians. There was
Where is the
another
evidence?
video of, I will share that with you. That's no problem. There was another video of a Palestinian man throwing rocks at Israeli soldiers and they shot him. Rocks, I mean, throwing rocks and
Well,
they shot him. So
Has that
there
been
is no,
verified that
there is
Israeli
okay,
no, there is, Levi, please. I said I will share the information with you. So there is no shortage of barbarity from either side. So it's not a situation of a good guy, bad guy situation.
right,
These people are fighting over land, and
right.
these things are tragic, but they are not totally unexpected. And
Can I make a point to Levi's point about throwing rocks? I read a story last week where the tactic is to throw rocks until someone throws a grenade that looks like a rock. If you've ever seen a grenade, they can look like rocks. So, throwing rocks, I'm not sure that that's a good like comeback. It they're
if you're
all
throwing
they're rocks
if you're
till they're grenades.
yeah,
if
yeah.
I'm Israeli soldier, you're throwing rocks at me, I'm going to shoot you. If
Okay, it's
especially
not the Israelis throwing rocks
is it Palestinians, right?
until
Correct.
they throw grenades.
Thank you. So maybe when the tension is so high, maybe Palestinians should not be throwing rocks at Israeli soldiers who, by the way, their citizens just got attacked by
Well,
Hamas. Maybe
maybe
they shouldn't be
Israelis shouldn't be taking land or settling.
well,
Yeah.
this all goes back to what I was saying before. It's the same argument I made before when we are having this conversation the other day. I believe that Israeli have right to the land, and whoever is more
I
powerful and who
believe
has
they
more
don't.
is going to definitely expand their territory, just like the Russians are trying to do
Okay.
in
You
Ukraine.
know what? Too
So,
many parallels. I think
Well,
if I think the
but it's
damage
true.
is
It's true.
I think the damage has been done. You know, Israel should not give something up that they've had for 70 years.
So
But why expand it?
by Levi's metric, right? Power is the only thing that matters, right? So he who has the power can take the land. So you're
The
also
reason,
okay.
reason
You're
the
okay
reason we
if
have
the
peace is
Palestinians
what we
if the
agreed.
Palestinians have the
Like,
power, it's legitimate for them to also take the land and kick the Jews out, the Israelis out,
that,
if they have the power.
that's precisely what's happening. Yes, that's exactly what's going to be happening right now. If the
Okay.
Israelis were, or they had a lesser military force against, I mean, as compared to Hamas, the terrorists, that's exactly what will be happening now. The
But
Israelis will be getting
Charles's question
exterminated.
is would you be okay if there was a power shift? Might makes
If I would
right,
be okay,
correct?
truth is, I wouldn't really care because it's the way the world is. Some people are just more powerful than others. So I don't really
Mhm.
care.
Well, I appreciate your consistency. I actually do appreciate it.
Yeah.
I
My point is
agree. I
don't
mean,
be
it's gonna happen.
don't be
And but I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just like it's gonna happen. Like in both cases, it's gonna happen. I just
I
feel
mean,
that America shouldn't be giving billions of dollars to either cause when countries in Europe are not. Like, why are there's enough going on in this country? Let them
my
figure it
question
out.
Well,
It's
I
been
have
going
an
on
answer
for
to your
generations.
question.
my questions to the Americans on the panel is why are you guys allowing your government to send billions of dollars to whoever that is outside your
Right.
shores
I
is
have
what
an
I
answer to those questions. Um, their prior commitments. There was a prior commitment. I put a link somewhere to Ukraine It was part of like a nuclear disarmament treaty a couple decades ago. That's why America is so concerned over Ukraine.
Uh,
And
America should be
the
concerned
Zionism
about.
part, America made a commitment, and so did Britain for that matter, to Israel back in like 1948. These are all treaties.
Is this linked in the private chat?
I'm
They should
sorry,
be more concerned about their citizens.
I don't disagree. And I
Oh,
actually agree more than you would think. I don't think either side is thinking of their citizens. They're
No, I'm
thinking
talking
of,
about America should be more concerned about its citizens.
well, who,
yes.
well, see, there's the difference. Who elects the government in America? The citizens.
Well,
Maybe the citizens should think more about citizens.
Well, the citizens can't control what the president does.
The citizens literally elect the president indirectly. Citizen, it's by and read the Constitution.
Yeah, of
So
course, the citizens elect the president. But if the president has these
okay,
deals
the
with these different
president
countries and
is
he
not
decides
the
to
president.
do things that are against the citizens, I
I
mean, what can be
suggest
done about that?
I suggest you
Uh,
read the
let me
Constitution.
make a point.
Okay, so it's
Let
very
me
late.
make a point.
Levi, make your point, and we'll wrap up the conversation within the next few minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the thing is this: I'm all for governments staying in their lanes and doing what the citizens want in general, but I'm still not against if the United States government considers Israel as an ally. I don't have a problem with them sending billions of dollars as far as the citizens agree with it. But to best of my knowledge, I don't know if the citizens are in agreement with sending billions of dollars to Israel. But I'm not against it in principle, just as
So,
far as the citizens are not opposed to it.
how do you
I'm
determine whether
against it
the
as a
citizens?
citizen who pays
How
the
do you
taxes.
determine whether the citizens
But we're
are
talking
for it or
about-
against it? Levi, how do you
Well,
determine whether the citizens are or against it?
well, we can. I guess the representatives of the people. They have to decide because obviously the people voted the representatives there, so they can decide whether they are going to sign into whether the federal government is going to send billions of dollars overseas, foreign wars or not. So I guess
So,
the representatives have to
so
have that say in the matter.
So what if the people say, let's take a district, for example, maybe there is a congressman representing a district, and those people in that district, they obviously don't want the government sending money to Israel or Ukraine, but the congressman feels otherwise and votes for it. Is that a reflection of the will of the people?
Well, what I think is this: before any congressman votes on any major issue like that, there should be some sort of should I say survey or some sort of voting system where the people should go to the ballots and vote themselves on the issue of whether their representatives should vote yes to
Do
sending
you
billions
think
of
that
dollars.
happens in practice?
And the
It
American
doesn't
government, uh,
that should be the deal
That
for
would be
every.
nice, but never happen.
Okay.
the
You can
founders,
say it doesn't happen. You just have to try it out because if we keep allowing these representatives to vote based on their own personal inclinations, I mean, this is why we are complaining right now on this live about sending billions of dollars abroad without people's consent. So that's a practical way of getting the people's minds about the issue, in my opinion.
I think personally, if that were to happen, the citizens would not vote for it because there's so much going on in this country. They wouldn't vote to send billions of dollars to,
or you make a good
foreign countries
if
in
that
I'm for the
situations that
citizens.
are not affecting us at all.
if
I
that
don't care about
representative
I care
goes
about the citizens.
against what his constituents want, he will pay the price next time there's an election.
Thank you, Stanley. Thank you. That's the idea.
Yeah, and
Okay.
hopefully,
So, many people in the US have been complaining about the money's been sent to Ukraine and all that. Do you think that's going to have an impact in the outcome of the election of mostly Democrats?
No.
Why?
Yes.
We just had an off-year election a couple days ago, and the issues were not
Mm,
Ukraine and Israel. Oddly enough, it was abortion.
yeah,
So
but
Yeah.
it
but
depends.
but you see how the idea that, oh, we can simply vote them out of office if they don't do what we want. You see how it's not even feasible because there's so many issues, right? It's not just Ukraine. There are other issues that may be more pressing. So the politician can still get away with not doing what the people want
But see,
because
the
there are other
problem,
pressing issues.
these are treaties. Okay, these are promises that might have been made like 20 or 70 years ago. Um, Treaties are kind of beyond the electorate. Okay, the politicians are literally bound by treaties. Now, if you want to break a treaty, you can do that. But this
Yeah,
isn't these treaties for like Ukraine and Israel, they're
I
treaties. They're
Daniel,
not,
I
they're,
understand all that. I'm just trying to
okay, well, it doesn't,
I'm trying
what I'm
I'm
saying is
trying
it
to
doesn't matter
draw
what the
I'm trying
people
to
want.
draw the relationship between, oh,
There is no
what the people
relationship.
want has to,
There
happen.
is no
it's
relationship.
it's a myth. It doesn't happen. It's what the elected representatives want to do. That's what happens
No,
anyway. And there is
no,
really, okay.
it doesn't work that way. Now,
Okay.
It should work out.
no, it does not.
I said it should.
If the people want the treaty broken, you can start a movement and force your representatives to void the treaty. That can happen.
Okay.
So a
I don't know what
treaty
time you
that
Yes,
are
was
doing that.
developed 80
yes,
years ago
yes,
takes precedent
yes,
over what's going
yes,
on today
yes.
in this
It
country.
does.
When we have thousands of people
It
living on the
literally
street,
does.
have
Unless the
illegal
people,
immigrants coming into this country, disrupting
yes,
cities. So a
yes.
80-year-old treaty takes precedent over that.
It's
I don't
called,
believe that.
yes, what you said is true, unless the people get together and decide to break the agreement.
When the
All
majority of
right.
people probably
So
don't even know about it.
so
Probably.
I think
This
I think
goes
this would be
this goes back to the Democrats not teaching kids to read, right?
Right.
uh,
Right.
so I think this would be a good place
Uh,
to call this
Keeping them
one to a
dumb.
close. I didn't want to do more
What?
than 1 hour or keep doing more than the time I said I was going to do.
No,
Anyway,
Okay.
good good talking with every one of you. Maybe we'll just take our last
well,
thoughts on
Charles, are we
any.
getting closing statements?
Yeah. That's what we're doing now. So we'll go with Wolf and Levi, Stanley, then
Well,
Melinda, ladies last.
Oh,
So
okay.
let's
oh, I'll let Melinda go first out of due respect for the woman here. So go ahead, Melinda.
no, that's not the order. The order is the lady goes last.
Yeah, it's in Charles's forum, so I go by what he said.
um, well,
Charles, good
Charles,
area.
I kind of agree with what she said. I think you should be neutral as an American because it's easy for us in America having the biggest military to say, and this is why Israel can do what they do to Palestine and get away with it because they have the U.S. military behind them. So Israel has done things to Palestine.
they
Hamas
have
has
the
retaliated.
government, not the military.
Well, the government, the military has to carry out the orders of the government.
Closing statement, guys.
I don't
Um,
agree with that.
to an extent, not fully, but to an extent. But anyway, so to wrap it up, I don't think you should have a position on this. And as crazy as it is, I think that if you are an American citizen and you are protesting in favor of Hamas, I hate to say this, but one thing at the RNC that said what was true, I think all of them students should have their visas removed. because you are promoting a terrorist organization. You're not saying the Palestine people, you're saying specifically Hamas. I don't agree with that. Um, and I just think that people should do more research. And I just think that I appreciate everybody's perspective here. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you, Wolf. Levi, over to you.
All right, all right. Shout out to Wolf. I mean, you guys are talking about a lot of interesting topics. I didn't get to chime in, because of the network over here. But I believe maybe some other time I'll get a chance. But concerning the issue of the Israel-Palestine thing, but like I've always said, all right, people with the biggest guns are always going to dominate, and this is the case for what is going on in Israel today. I mean, there's no way, whichever way you want to split it, Israel is always going to be stronger in terms of military might, and they are going to oppress the Palestinian people until the Palestinian people are able to get themselves together and able to protect themselves and able to secure the lands that they claim that the Israelis are taking away from them. So I really don't mind um, the intervention of the US because the US considers Israel as an ally for some reason that me I don't have much information on. But I don't have a problem with that, honestly speaking. So if they want to send billions of dollars, and the citizens of the US cannot do anything about it, that's their business. I mean, Nigeria doesn't have anything to do with my taxes, so that's their business. And concerning what the stream was actually about, the conservatives and why they lost the right to protest or complain about censorship, right? I don't believe any of that. I stated the position of conservatives about censorship, um, which was actually not about how that conservatives are not for censorship. We're just against using censorship against conservatives. Let the rules apply across the board, across different people from different political affiliations. It should not just be targeted at conservatives specifically. So that's what conservatives are against. Censorship that's against, a particular group. So that's the discrimination that the liberals keep whining about. So that's pretty much my take on the
Levi, can I ask you a question real quick? Do you think that
yeah.
Israel should have to stop attacking Hamas for us to keep helping them? Because I think that Israel should be held accountable if they want the U.S. to keep helping them.
Um I think whether or not they are kept accountable, the US is still going to help them, still going to send them money and send them more resources to fight the terrorists that are trying to exterminate them. So it doesn't really matter about accountability. This is what the Palestinian side is talking about, that Israel is not being held accountable. So it doesn't really matter whether Israel is held accountable or not. The US is still going to support Israel.
Okay, thank you, Levi. Stanley.
Um, I actually wish we could do this show, like a part two of this show, because I thoroughly disagree with the assessment of how conservatives use censorship. It's don't censor me, but censor thee. And I'll stop there because I stepped on so much of Melinda's um points
As
because
forced by
that I'm going to yield my time to Melinda.
All right, thank you, Stanley. Melinda.
It's okay. You didn't step on my point. We were just having a discussion. And I'm not Republican or Democrat, but I do have conservative views. And I just feel that this country should worry about this country and what's going on outside of it. That's my takeaway.
All right. So lovely conversation with each and every one of you.
Well, hold on, Charles. You didn't give your perspective. You got to go too.
Yeah, pretty much given my perspective. So I'll just summarize it again. My perspective as regards the topic is that conservatives have become the very thing that they've been crying against for years, and it just it's comical, and it's just comical to me anyway, and disappointing. So that's what I think. That's what I think about that.
Oh,
About
the conservatives aren't done disappointing you yet. There's
Yeah.
more to come.
Yeah, Charles, last
well,
thing I'll say, if you listen to that RNC debate, it was an embarrassment. Those guys were all jackasses on that stage, even the woman
yeah,
too.
yeah. I listened. I saw clips of it, and
I'm
it
sure
wasn't
we'll be
anything interesting for me.
there.
Wasn't
So, I mean,
interesting for me.
what do you expect?
Yeah. So, Melinda, it was really good to have you. I do wish you'd call in more often.
Yeah,
So
Here,
it's not just the
here.
voice.
Call in way more.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Melinda, again, just to say, I didn't catch everything, so I wish I could have heard it from the beginning. But Melinda, you're very intelligent. It was good having a dialogue with you, and I appreciate your perspective.
yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, I will try. I'm actually looking for work right now, so probably won't have many more chances. But if I do get a chance, then I'll make an attempt.
sure, sure. So, guys, that will be all for the stream today. Have a great day. Have a great night. It's bye for now.
Okay.